Okay, continuing animal form and function. Let's talk about animal nutrition right now. So, nutrition, the foods you take in need to do several things. Yeah, they provide energy to do work, the raw materials to build things, and certain essential nutrients, vitamins and minerals that you need. For example, we know there are 20 different amino acids we use to build our proteins. Here are 8 of them that are known as the essential amino acids because they're ones our bodies cannot synthesize from other raw materials, so they have to be included in our diet. If you eat meat, then you get all the amino acids you need. If you're a vegetarian, however, you have to make sure you get the right combinations of foods because really none of them provide all of your essential amino acids. So you have to eat beans and corn in combination to get these 8 amino acids, for example. So, what's the difference between a vitamin and a mineral? Well, a vitamin is basically an organic compound, and these organic compounds, these vitamins, are often coenzymes needed for certain reactions. Here's a list of them and the different sources of foods that you find them in. When you have deficiency, or in some case excess of them, they can cause problems. Here's the schematic of vitamin C, as you can see, a good example of one of these organic molecules. Minerals, on the other hand, are particular elements that you need in your diet in relatively small amounts. Again, here's the list and the sources of foods and the deficiencies and how they're used. You don't have to memorize this, obviously. A couple of them, of course, you know, iron, important in your diet. Part of hemoglobin, the compound that's in your red blood cells that helps you carry oxygen, so that's very important there. If you don't get enough of it, you become anemic. Alright, so if you simply do not have enough calories in your diet, you're what we would say is undernourished, like this poor horse here. You're essentially on a starvation diet, you might say, whereas if you're malnourished, you may be getting enough calories, but you're lacking certain nutrients, like this particular disease where these children are lacking protein in their diet. Alright, so the act of feeding is first, or of getting nutrition you need. You have to ingest it first, where it begins up in the mouth and you chew it, begin mechanical digestion there, break it up into smaller pieces, then down into your stomach where you begin chemical digestion. Actually, a little bit of that does begin in your mouth with the enzyme in your saliva. Then after it's broken down, you absorb those nutrients primarily in your small intestine. And then anything that isn't used comes out the other end, the waste material, elimination of that. We saw in the Hydra a little earlier how it has only a couple cell layers thick. Well, when it comes to digestion, it has a gastrovascular cavity, and digestion begins in that gastrovascular cavity, and those partially digested food molecules are absorbed by the cells. So there's a combination of what we would call extracellular and intracellular digestion here. Now, most animals have a complete digestive tract with a mouth and a back end, an anus, and digestion occurs in that tube. So for the most part, you would say we have extracellular digestion. So it occurs outside of cells in that tube, and then those digested compounds are absorbed, again, primarily in the small intestine. So here's the whole picture of the digestive system. Again, this tube that runs through our body from the mouth to the esophagus to the stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and then on out. Now we have a couple significant organs here, the liver and the pancreas, that, as we'll see, are important as well. Mastication, or chewing, up in the mouth, beginning the breakdown of the food. Tongue is very important there for manipulating the food in our mouth, and also when we swallow, the tongue moves back and causes the epiglottis to block the trachea, which is a good thing because that keeps the food going down the esophagus and not down the trachea. So when you're not swallowing, of course, the trachea is open and you can breathe. Remember those smooth muscle that line our digestive system? They help with sort of squeezing or pushing the food down to the stomach. In the stomach, we have these epithelial tissue that lines the stomach and these little pits. And here we secrete digestive enzymes and also hydrochloric acid. It's very acidic in the stomach. The hydrochloric acid helps to activate this one enzyme that is involved with digesting proteins. The liver, among other things, secretes bile, and bile is stored in the gallbladder. Bile is used to emulsify fats to break them down into smaller pieces to make it easier to digest them. The pancreas secretes compounds that raise the pH so that material in the stomach is quite acidic, and as it leaves the stomach and goes into the small intestine, it's mixed with this pancreatic juice, which helps to raise the pH because you don't want a very low pH compound inside of your small intestines. So here's sort of the whole picture. Of course, the things that need to be digested and what's going on where from the beginning to the end. Up in the mouth is where some sugars or digestion begins with these salivary amylase, and then throughout the system as well. Proteins beginning in the stomach with that pepsin, that one we saw a few moments ago, but further on down as well. And then nucleic acids in the small intestine, and fats, again with the bile being released to help break those fat droplets down into smaller pieces. You can see the names here quite descriptive. Disaccharidases. So these are going to be enzymes that break down sugars, and pancreatic amylases. Again, these are ones from the pancreas to help break down sugars. Pancreatic trypsin. These things involved with breaking down proteins. Nucleosidases involved with breaking down nucleic acids. Okay. One's dentition is often indicative of the kind of foods they eat. If you're a carnivore, you have these big, what am I trying to say? These large, not the eye teeth, but the next one's over, which I'm having a blockage right now. And whereas you can see in the horse, they did all these relatively flat horse for sort of ripping and then grinding up the grass. We have sort of a combination because we have sort of a varied diet. Now the curious one is the gorilla here, who they are primarily, they are exclusively herbivores, but yet they have these rather large canine teeth here. Canines, that's what I was trying to say. And so why might they have those still? Well, it could be at one time in their evolutionary history their diet did include meat, and so they just have these as just because, or it could be that they're there for a defensive mechanism, and not so much for eating. Interesting adaptation that certain animals have. These ruminants, they have the four-chambered stomach. They have a herbivorous diet. They eat a lot of grass. Grass is not terribly nutritious, and it's difficult to digest because it has a lot of cellulose. If we were to eat it, that cellulose just goes straight through you because you can't digest it. But ruminants, in the rumen and the reticulum, they have a lot of microbes that live there that have the enzymes that can break down cellulose. So that's where that process begins. The cow regurgitates this partially digested food, chews on it, that's the chewing of the cud, re-swallows it, where it goes to the omasum and the abomasum, which is pretty much like our stomach, has a low pH, and a lot of digestion occurs there and into the intestine, etc. So this multi-chambered stomach allows them to extract more nutrition from this relatively low nutrient food that they have. Feedback mechanisms. Here's a good example with your diet. So blood sugar level is important to maintain at relatively constant levels. Your pancreas releases insulin so that when blood sugar levels increase, you've had a significant meal, you've eaten a lot of pasta, insulin is secreted, which causes your cells to be able to make use of that insulin, and also for that sugar to be just stored in your liver as glycogen. which will then be released later for use. If blood sugar levels are low, then your pancreas releases a compound called glucagon, which stimulates the breakdown of the glycogen in your liver and releasing of simple sugars into the bloodstream. So this insulin and this glucagon are used to maintain homeostasis of blood sugar level. And folks who have diabetes have problems here in that they either don't produce enough insulin, or their cells have become less responsive to insulin, and so their blood sugar levels tend to go up and down more radically than the rest of us. Also, other mechanisms of feedback. So if your stomach is empty, you'll get a feedback up to your brain that says, I'm hungry, it's time to eat something. But you also have negative feedback. So if you're releasing a lot of insulin, that means you have a lot of blood sugar in your system, so that means you really don't need to eat. And the same with these other compounds from your pancreas and also from your intestine, that when your intestine, for example, has lots of material in it that's being digested, you'll get a feedback that says, well, you don't need to eat a whole lot. It's been shown that deficiencies in these that can be due to genetics can be partly responsible for folks who overeat and are subject to obesity, because they don't receive that feedback that tells them they should stop eating, that they're full. And so they may just keep eating. And so that can lead to problems with obesity, which we know is a significant problem in this country and many others, where folks have basically carrying too much weight around. In the past, this ability to put on lots of weight could have been quite adaptive, because back in the caveman days there would have been times of the year of feast and famine, so you had to fatten up for the winter basically, as some other types of animals do. They're able to put on lots of weight as they're rapidly growing, with this bird for example. But with us, this may be considered a maladaptive trait, in that now with so much food being available, putting on so much weight probably isn't such a is perhaps, again, maladaptive today. Okay, well, I'll stop that video there and do the next chapter in the next video. Thanks.